So welcome to episode 3 for Tkachuk Immigration Podcast, where we welcome lots of different guests with different backgrounds. Today we have a special guest. This is Vlad Tkachuk, who's also my cousin. And he actually will bring up a lot of interesting topics today about AI and computer science. So Vlad, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I'm currently a third year PhD student at the University of Alberta, and I'm studying computer science. And I guess like a short intro is that even as a PhD student, I'm actually an instructor at the university as well. So I teach an intro to a machine learning course with over 300 students. So I get to see a lot of different student interactions and how they get introduced to AI and I guess how they are doing in school. And then I also do research in machine learning.
Wow.
And maybe
That's impressive. So how come you picked the PhD programs? Like this is quite a path, for your career.
Yeah, the short answer is I just always loved academia. So I wanted to try it, and when I got into grad school, I fell in love. So now I think I'm on my path to becoming a professor, hopefully.
So you deal a lot with international students, and I just wanted to hear maybe your experience with international students. How do you find working and actually learning more with them? I know that you were helping a lot of Canadian and international students to learn more, and you help professors to take over the teachings. So what's your experience with international students so far?
Yeah, so I can give some background. So we can take a step back as well. So I did my bachelor's in computer and electrical engineering at Waterloo. And in that class, this is just like anecdotal, kind of what I remember, but there was probably around 80% students in the class were international.
Wow,
And they
that's a
were
lot.
largely from India and China
Okay.
there. So that was a bit of a shock coming from high school, actually.
Yeah,
Um,
what about currently in your PhD program? How many of students are actually international?
yeah, and so currently in my PhD students, so like once again from anecdotal experience at least, it feels like almost everyone's an international student, and it makes me actually feel like a bit of a minority as a Canadian student. And then I was looking a little bit into the data for this, and just looking this year, this is across the whole university, we accepted 111 students total for grad programs. So
Wow,
this is master's and PhD.
master's and PhD. Yeah. So that this
And
is
out of the 111 students, 75 were international.
wow, that's a big number.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I think so. This is across all of the like departments,
yeah,
and computer science is a very big one. I'm not entirely sure how many students are
in other
in
departments.
that got accepted just for computer science alone, but I will say that it really does feel like 90% of the students that join each year are really international.
Which country you think is more of a leading one in this year? For instance, are they coming also from India and China or other countries as well?
Yeah, so all of the previous years, there was like a very large number of the students that came from Iran, actually.
Oh wow,
Uh, I don't know if this stat is like quite correct, but I remember quite a few of my Iranian friends actually saying something like over 50% of the international students that joined were from Iran, at least in the previous 2, 3 years. This year, I'm not entirely sure, but the other remaining international students are heavily like Indian or Chinese as well.
yes.
So these seem to be the three kind of
So
nationalities.
three major ones
Yeah.
like Iran, China, and India, right, still are a priority.
Hmm.
And I'm actually quite surprised because with immigration laws and like everything that is happening, the updates and news, they actually saying there are a lot of cuts, but you saying there is a lot of acceptance for the bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs, right?
That's right. So I was also looking into some of the data for this, and this year it appears that the university actually got an increase in international student applications by 10%
Yeah.
for bachelor's programs, and for graduate programs there's an increase of 20% applicants for international students,
Wow.
and the acceptance rate was also increased. But I'm not exactly sure if this is already taking into account whether they were able to get a visa and actually come to the university.
Yeah, I'm quite interested about like study permits approval rates. I feel like this data will not be acceptable to me or anywhere just yet because
Hmm.
if they are being accepted in the fall 2026, they're just applying for study permits right now. So we don't know the acceptance, like the acceptance rates of the study permits. But it's really interesting to see that University of Alberta accepted many great students from overseas, right?
That's right.
Sorry.
That's right.
That's correct. Yeah. And what because in the news, I'm just kind of wondering, and it's a good discussion to see. Maybe later we will see what's the data. Is it because it's a PhD program, master's degree, right? Versus colleges accepting 1 year or 2 year diploma, right? Students, because maybe rates or with the lower level of education might have lower acceptance rates, right? Versus bachelor's
Yeah.
degree. And as Canada, we are moving into a direction where we want to attract more talent, right? I have a question for you. So, as we mentioned, you see a lot of international students, some Canadians. What is the difference in work ethics? Do you think there's international students who work harder versus Canadians? Uh, uh, is there
Yeah, so
any
that's an
difference?
interesting question. And I think as I guess you've heard from me, around 80 to 90% of the students I interact with are international.
Yeah.
So I actually have very little data of interacting with Canadian students. And even to put that, like even North American students in general, there's not that many from the US.
Yeah.
And so in my experience, like anecdotally again, is something like that they work around the same. And this is hard to disentangle, like because maybe there's just like because the international students are more hardworking, maybe that's why there's so many more of the spots that are occupied by international students. Um, and so it seems like the Canadian students that do get in are themselves also very hardworking, and it would be hard to say that the
They have
international
intention
students.
to actually get that PhD and actually,
That's right.
yeah, they're really interested
So
into
those
it.
few students that I do see from Canada are very hardworking as well.
I'm just wondering why there's such a little percentage of Canadians actually applying for these type of programs because we don't like as you just said it's like almost 80% of students are international versus Canadians. Do you think there's less interest from Canadian kids actually going into this career path through getting degree and getting a PhD? Do you think there's some correlation between being international versus Canadian?
Yeah, so my opinion on this, I think, is not data supported. It's just personally my opinion, and
Just
and
the
and and this
opinion.
one is something that I think like is largely driven by culture. And what I mean by that is that at least like when I grew up in high school, the high school I went to, it was largely Canadians. Like there
Yeah.
was almost no international students. It was heavily like European or Canadian raised. And I mean, we both are Eastern European coming from Ukraine,
Yeah.
and the experience I had in my upbringing with my parents was like they were very determined on me doing very well in school, and
Otherwise, it's not good,
and
right?
specifically in fields like
Grounded.
math and physics and sciences.
Yes.
And I did not see that from a lot of my friends growing up in high school. It was very okay to do any kind of career you wanted. It didn't really matter. And so then going into like my bachelor's and in grad school, I see this same kind of cultural belief from many other students that are international. So, like from Iran, China, and
Yeah.
India, this seems to be like a cultural belief that's deeply ingrained in them and their families. That going into
100%.
like something like engineering or computer science or maths is like extremely prestigious, and that's what you should pursue. And I don't know if I see the same kind of thing from Canadian students.
You know what? It's funny because, like, from my personal experience, I went to high school here. I completed high school back home. You came when you were 4. I arrived when I was 17, but I still was put it back in grade 12.
Mm-hmm.
And because I already went through examination and applying for a university back home, here in high school, I'm grade 12, but whatever they were learning in a grade 12, it was information that I was getting from like a grade 8 to 10, you know? And I
Yeah,
was a bit shocked that, how they cannot do it. Like Canadians, some Canadians do really well in high school, but I found like my level of knowledge at that time was way advanced versus whatever they were teaching in high school.
yeah.
Even going to colleges in university, I feel like it just slowly picks up to the level where we have a grade 12 in high school.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Actually, a lot of the international students, at least I'm familiar with India and China,
Yeah.
they have these standardized tests in grade 12 that they have to take in order to get into university.
Yeah.
And they say it's the most stressful period of their life, like that it's much
Oh.
more demanding than the work they have to do at university, even when they get in. Um,
Do,
and so that's dramatically different from high school in Canada.
question for you. Do you think we should implement this in Canada? Like, because what I went through, we had no calculators, no formulas, no equations next to us. We just had no AI, right? No, nothing. We just had our minds and just a piece of paper, and that's how we had to do the examination. Do you think we should do that, or we actually have to use the help of AI because we're moving to the future, right? To actually do our testings.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be a big disservice to not introduce kids to AI,
Yeah,
since I think it's going to be a very large part of how they kind of do like many jobs in their life. I
yeah,
think it would be similar to like how if you like a very simple example is like when you do math, if you never teach people there's calculators, it's
100%.
like sort of helpful to first introduce them to how, a calculator might add and multiply numbers, but you're never going to expect people to add and multiply numbers in their head for most jobs. Like you probably want them to use a calculator because it's going to give you the right answer all the time. It's probably going to be similar with AI tools. It's helpful to like teach them how things work in school somewhat, but then tell them, look, there's a tool that can do all this and is going to probably be way more accurate than you are.
Yeah.
But you should kind of have an idea of how it works in case you run into any problems.
I agree too. Like, I think you should be able to use everything what you have from your knowledge in real life. What if AI or ChatGPT or internet doesn't, it's not there and you really need something to resolve in real life, right? So I feel like you need to be able to um, function with AI and without it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But moving forward, I feel like we are we're losing that reality of being on your own. We are really rely on ChatGPT and AI and just other technical tools, right?
Yeah, and it partly gets into like um, the fact that these things can make mistakes, and same thing with like many technologies, like things can go wrong,
Oh,
and
100%.
as soon as things go wrong and you don't know what happened or you don't understand how they work, it becomes a very big problem, especially if you're trying to use it for any like
Or immigration paperwork or immigration filing, I would say it's like if
yes,
you're doing your application on your own and you're asking a question. I actually had a client before who came to me and he said, I did a consultation and he said, well, ChatGPT said this. And I'm like, you can't really rely on ChatGPT with all the information because immigration law actually changes so often that it's not quite even updated, you know?
yeah,
Even if I have to ask that same question in ChatGPT, it will not really give me a correct answer. And then it will, when I say, well, it's not correct, and they're like, oh, yes, it's not correct. You are right. You know how the ChatGPT
that's
answers
right.
me. Yeah. But going back, I want to ask you about the international students more
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many of them, and it's quite a lot to take when you're 16 years old or 17
Mm-hmm.
years old coming to study in Canada
Mm-hmm.
for whatever program, and you're leaving everything behind. And there's a lot of spendings, financial burdens, right? You've been a student. I know you've done a lot of cool things to save money, and I know that you're really good at it, right? What would you recommend to international students on how to actually be able to save money while international fees are so expensive for tuition?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to just mention I have like a lot of respect for these international students because just thinking back when I was 17, 18 and starting university, I can't even imagine having to have moved to a new country, lived
Yeah.
in a new place, and then think about any sort of money like spending and like
And
saving
paying
money
double
and
then.
needing to spend more on tuition, which was already a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just like first of all, it's just like extremely complicated at that age because you're not that mature yet.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Um, and so maybe I have a few pieces of advice. Like one really simple one is where you live matters in Canada because certain
Yeah.
places can be dramatically more expensive than others. So like for example, the University of Alberta is in Edmonton, and from like this is not exact data, but it seems like living expenses is something like half of the price of Toronto or Vancouver.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of people actually moved from Ontario to Alberta because of the
that's
living
right.
expenses, right?
Yes, and so the tuition doesn't really change between universities, but the living expenses can be like halved if you choose to go, for instance, live in Edmonton.
Yeah.
That's one consideration. And then maybe the other big one is that there's a lot of scholarships out there.
Yeah.
And when I was a bachelor student, at least, I wasn't so aware of this. You get the occasional email, but I would just kind of disregard all these emails because you get flooded with so much information. But there really is a lot of different scholarships out there, like available for students. And the
Yeah.
interesting thing is there's a lot of targeted scholarships, which means
For instance, like what kind of targeted scholarship that like international
right,
students should
and
know?
this is just me kind of trying to apply to scholarships now, actually as a student, and I noticed that there's like maybe over 50% of scholarships will ask, well, actually there'll be like eligibility criteria saying that I need to be, for instance, a woman, or I need
Okay.
to be a student like a nationality from Iran, or from Ukraine, let's say,
Yeah.
or from
Wow, I
India,
should apply.
or a person of color, or indigenous,
Yeah.
or like if I have kids,
Yeah.
like if I'm a parent. And
Oh,
so
that's
there's
really
like these very
nice.
focused scholarships for people in specific roles, trying to help them out and give them like kind of a better opportunity to win the scholarship. And yeah,
Yeah. I think it's really important for international students, especially when you're spending a lot of money for tuitions. Plus, you have to prove that you have enough funds to reside in Canada during your studies, right? Because when, from a study permit perspective, it's not so simple. You have to prove to Immigration Canada that you have enough funds and you paid your tuition fees. Because based on that, actually, I think it's a major factor determining if you actually will get your study permit approval. So you have a lot of international students probably coming up to you or other professors asking about the future career goals, right? And do you give them any recommendations on like what jobs to take, or what a recommendation you usually do say to them in order to have a great future?
Yeah, so actually that's a great question because during the course I teach, this Intro to ML course, there's a lot of students that actually come to my office hours not asking questions about the course, but asking what kind of job can I kind of expect to get? Do you think it makes sense for me to try to go in machine learning or whatnot? Um, and I don't always have a great response for them, but a belief I seem to kind of have gained through the years is that the jobs that are sort of reliable to for the next maybe 10 years to get are jobs that require like kind of physical labor or like human interaction.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say are the jobs that will be disappearing because of AI in like the next few years? What should we be aware of?
Yeah, so I think if we talk about maybe like 5 to 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe I can start with a quote from a famous person, Bill Gates. So Bill Gates, I think like 6 months ago or something, I remember hearing, and don't quote me exactly, but he said something like, a lot of the white collar jobs are in danger, while a lot of the blue collar jobs are kind of more safe.
Interesting.
Um, and I think the rough idea is something like I was saying, like jobs that require physical labor are going to be hard to kind of automate or replace with
Yeah.
AI because they'll also require like a robotic or like a mechanical element.
Yeah.
And that is something we have not been seeing as much progress in.
Yeah.
So like robotics seems to be a lot harder
Yeah.
than like kind of what people call like intellectual work to
Yeah.
automate.
So like administrative jobs. So for instance, sometimes like the things that I personally ask for in my field, I will probably not have, let's say, additional, let's say, admin assistant, right? Because AI like ChatGPT helps me to like draft emails pretty fast, right?
Yeah, so I think people say something like routine labor, um, especially in office work, will very easily be replaced. So
Yeah.
things like responding to emails, there's already like kind of models that can do this for you. Other kind of routine tasks like maybe editing smaller videos or doing things like this.
Yeah.
There's some like possibility of this type
It
of stuff
generates
being,
pictures too. Like it's so
yeah,
easy, right? And it's so interesting that you mentioned about the physical work, because a lot of trades, like Canada, is trying to promote a lot of trade occupations. So I also think a lot of people who are trying to come to Canada, maybe even just for studying, maybe they should just consider something in trade occupations like becoming electrician or plumbing, right? Because these jobs will be hard to replace. With robotics specifically, it's not as progressive, right? Versus AI.
that's right. I think these jobs for at least the next 10 years will
Still be very safe.
have like no problems in terms of being replaced and stuff. It'll be very
Yes,
hard to get robots that do electrical work well or do air conditioning or construction work
exactly.
very efficiently.
You always need that job, right? Like you something always break and like you need something around the house. And I know a lot of my friends who actually made it like made construction their main field of making profit, right? That's actually they do really well because a lot of people need plumbing, they need HVAC, they need electricians. And sometimes you of course not always make it, but there's if you work really hard, I feel like, and you do good networking, you will probably and you're good at it, right? So I think you'll have a good clients in the future. But you know what, it's a funny thing, just to bring up more different occupations. Immigration Canada in the 2026, they're trying to introduce more targeted occupations that they
Hmm.
want to prioritize, and one of them is let's say leadership, like senior managers, right? Uh, Occupations in research and innovation, something that you do personally, right?
Hmm.
And the military and national security, right? So what do you think about that? Do you think a lot of jobs are in the research, uh, in innovation right now? Because you're working in that right now. Is there a lot of openings in University of Alberta or anywhere in Canada? What do you think?
Um, I actually don't know the exact data, or like I seem to not be able to speak about whether the openings have changed or job positions at the University of Alberta, for
Yeah.
instance, for like professor positions or instructor positions. But the just regarding those type of jobs and like maybe what other people think and whether they'll be replaced as well. There's another, I guess, famous person. So this company called NVIDIA, they make these GPU chips, which is basically what
Yeah.
all the AI is trained on. And I think they're like one of the top five highest like valuation companies in the world right now. And their CEO Jensen Huang, I think I remember in a year or something like a past year, he said something like, "What we really are going to need is, or like the jobs that will people should focus on are like domain experts and stuff like this,
Yeah.
because they'll be able to like actually guide the AI and choose what it should be used on, as opposed to actually doing like the low level entry level jobs." So when it comes to like these research jobs, or can you remind me what the first one was that you said?
That was like a leadership,
Oh yeah,
senior
and the leadership
managers.
one. This is a
Yeah.
good example too. These are roles where like you kind of need like entry level engineers or entry level like employees to kind of usually guide, but now that can be replaced probably with AI, but those roles will still need to be there.
Be
The
there for
people that
sure.
kind of guide and choose the direction that certain products or tasks get done.
It's really interesting because like it's a lot of contradiction. Let's say for research, when I did a lot of personal investigation into this immigration minister in producing those occupations to be prioritized in the future, but I didn't see that many of news or data where it says we really need researchers. I feel like it's more a purpose to it, that initiation versus a demand. So, if, for instance, we do want to progress as a country, right, to have more research, innovation,
Mm-hmm.
AI, right? So, I guess we are moving to the direction of a searching talent versus filling the labor shortage, right? Um, Also, I wanted to talk to you about the some jobs that may be replaced. So, like, let's say we have this occupation, targeted occupation list, like for STEM occupation, that will be like civil engineer or mechanical engineer. Do you also agree that they will be replaced or no?
Well, I think though, so at least for civil and mechanical, these I think, and I'm not entirely familiar because I did my engineering bachelor's degree in electrical and computer, but they actually have to, like, part of many of their roles is to go on site and actually like kind of oversee how things are going, see the kind of the trades employees, how they're actually building certain things on site. And I think those roles will still need to be there. Like, there will need to be the engineers, at least the higher up engineers that go on site and actually oversee what's going on. But I'm also familiar that they have tasks that are kind of like routine labor tasks where I think they like have to manually go into some softwares and kind of
Yeah.
do some calculations about, for instance, maybe I know I have a friend who works in chemical engineering and he has to decide on like different pipes that need to be installed for
Yeah.
different oil lines. And these are kind of like
ChatGPT.
calculations he does, which can likely be automated by things like this.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately that will save him quite a bit of time probably, and then he can focus more maybe on
On the
like
main.
higher level like
Yeah.
tasks, like picking what like are better choices or tasks.
Yeah, for his
Yeah,
projects, right?
yeah.
So just now want to switch topics to a more personal one. So I want to ask maybe like some quick rounds of questions. They should be more fun because we
Okay.
are wrapping up the podcast right now. So let's say if I ask you, let's say coffee or tea during lecture, you have to answer like quick. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're not going to be good answers, but they'll be quick.
Okay, so don't think. Okay, you have to
Okay.
just like answer them. Okay, coffee or tea during lecture.
T.
Okay, most overrated tech buzzwords right now.
AI.
one one thing international students underestimate about Canada.
How much free space there is. How much like free land there is.
Oh, there's none. Oh my god,
No, there's a lot.
there's a lot.
As in
Yeah,
the international students usually come from very densely populated cities,
yeah.
and they come here and they're like, there's so much open land.
We have a
That's what
lot
I
of
hear all the
land.
time.
No way. I wish I could hear more about it. Like when I came to Canada, I came to Toronto, so I don't know. It was quite populated, but you know, when I
Hmm.
was actually driving with you around Edmonton, it was quite like not empty, but a lot of field, like a lot of
Yes.
farmland, right? If you weren't in computer science, what would you do?
I'd work in the trades, like construction.
No
Like
way.
like one of the like heavy machinery operators, like the tractor or like the excavator things. That'd be so much
No,
fun.
I don't will never like, you know what? I actually remember you saying it. It just so
Yeah. I love building things.
Okay, would AI replace immigration consultants, yes or no?
Not in 5 or 10 years, maybe in 10, or
In
sorry,
10?
maybe in 20, and
Oh,
almost definitely in 50, I think.
okay, I might retire by then.
Yeah.
I do believe that immigration consultants or lawyers will not be replaced anytime soon. I feel like the labor of amount of administrative work will decrease. Because let's say what I find in my field, I need less of, let's say, admin task to be done by someone
Mm-hmm.
versus like I can just do with AI, like organize the spreadsheet, organize, generate this picture. Um, I actually talk to AI, like
Yeah.
to ChatGPT, which is funny. I'm sitting in the office alone and I'm just talking to computer,
Yeah.
and people look at me and
Yeah. Well, I think like as maybe we had this theme before, which is like on the technical front, I think 5 to 10 years it'll be able to do everything that
yeah,
probably you need and could or should do.
yeah,
And then it's just going to be a matter of how long the adoption takes for people to trust the AI and like interact with it as opposed to needing to interact with you who are probably like you're
yeah.
probably just going to go through the AI and communicate to the customers.
I will probably be at the position where I'm checking AI,
That's
right?
right.
Because at certain points, like I had a client, like they come and check with ChatGPT, but in reality, as I mentioned, ChatGPT doesn't have updated rules and laws from Immigration Canada, right? It always changes. So, and unfortunately, I don't believe the RCC is well advanced yet. I do wish and I recommend RCC, like if they're listening to me, to actually use more of a specialist to advance it to make so in their department we still have some paper applications, which I think is very outdated. Everything should be online, everything should be more accessible. Even though I understand some clients maybe do not understand how to use computers, but we actually slowly moving to the generation where everyone knows how to use computer and
Yeah.
phone, and they're like a new generation is way more progressive. When you look at the kids, they're like phones and iPads, they're smarter than you were
Yeah.
at your age, right? For using AI and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I just want to jump in, like you mentioned this point of it might not have updated information and so on. And
yeah,
I think this is like a very easy technical fix that likely is already not like is already exists kind of where most of these large language models like ChatGPT, they have access to the internet and tool use and things like this where
yeah,
they can just search the internet and get the most updated information.
yeah.
So again, I think on the technical front, there shouldn't be much challenge there.
Maybe eventually, because I do still see a lot of mistakes, right? For instance, like when I ask a question in ChatGPT to check, I see that they give me a wrong answer because I know better
Right.
what a program is. What I think will happen in the future, that information that I inform or like a new information that appears in internet, right, will finally be corrected by ChatGPT, and that answer will probably be more likely correct in the future. But AI is advancing in like within minutes, right? Like we're
Yeah.
getting better and better. Sometimes, like I feel like in the future we're gonna generate videos. We already can generate websites, which is amazing. So, like for instance, I am using calculation. I created a, a little link where I could calculate points for my clients for the PNP programs. I'm generally using it for myself just to make it quicker,
Mm-hmm.
because generally in their websites and the PNP programs, prevention limiting programs, they have everything manually. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
calculate this how many points I get for age, this how many points I get for like work experience. I literally put that as a program into the ChatGPT. It created a link and I'm using it as for myself to
Yeah.
make it quicker,
Yeah.
which is impressive, right? Okay, on the final note, I want you to give one piece of advice you could give to international students in Canada today.
Yeah. I think that advice is that my experience in Canada is that things are pretty fair in terms of like how hard you work is how much you get out of the country and life here, which I think is absolutely beautiful. Like, unlike many other countries, which I firsthand am not familiar with, but I hear from the international students, that's not the case. Like, you can work really hard in other places and you just don't have much, you just don't have much say as to where you end up because of
Yes.
politics and so on. But here it's like, yes, it'll be a hard environment and it'll be like new to you and it'll be complicated and probably be a new language, but it's like it really is true that like if you work hard,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be easy all the time, but like you can get to what you want to most of the
You
time,
have opportunity,
which is
right?
like really beautiful. It's
I
quite fair
agree.
on that front.
I agree. Honestly, despite whatever we say, Canada is the one of the greatest countries, and even from where we coming from, Ukraine, there's a lot of corruption happening, you know, and a little protection sometimes. And as I remember stories from like, let's say if someone has a lot of money, you cannot really win in courts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm not too sure about Canada, and it's not a perfect system, right? But like at least there's a lot of fairness here and protection for you. And even for international student, temporary foreign worker, we do a lot for those people, and we welcome them. So thank you, Canada, and I thank you, Vlad, for coming here.
No problem.
And let's reconnect. Thank you.
Thank you.